The balloons were yellow, and you taped them to the door yourself, and you used too much tape. You were 8, and you stood at the front window watching the street for cars that were going to come. Your mother had made the cake the night before, chocolate, and the icing said your name in her slanted cursive. There were 8 paper cups fanned out on the card table, and a stack of small plates, and nobody to use them. You'd written the invitations at the kitchen table 2 weeks before, pressing hard with the pencil so the letters wouldn't smudge. You'd drawn a dinosaur on each one because you thought everyone liked dinosaurs the way you did. Your mother licked the envelopes for you so your tongue wouldn't get the bad taste. She said she'd drop them in the mailbox on her way to work, and you watched her tuck them into her purse. So you waited. 2 o'clock came the way 2 o'clock comes, quiet and ordinary. You pressed your forehead to the glass until it fogged, then wiped it, then pressed it again. Every time a car slowed near the house, your whole body went up like a held breath. Your mother kept finding things to do in the kitchen she'd already done. She wiped the same counter twice and told you they were probably just running late. At 2:30, she lit the candles, all 8, and the small flames leaned in the draft from the window. She said you didn't have to wait, that you could make a wish now, that wishes didn't know what time it was. You said you wanted to wait a little longer, and she said okay, and blew the candles out so they wouldn't burn down. By 3, the ice in the cooler had started to melt, and the soda cans were sweating onto the table. You stopped watching for cars and started watching the clock, which is a different kind of waiting. Your mother sat down next to you at the window and didn't say the thing you were both thinking. At some point, she relit the candles, and this time she didn't ask. She just said, "Make a wish, honey." You wished that one of them would still come, and then you blew, and the smoke went up thin and disappeared. You ate a piece of cake because she was watching, and it was good, and it tasted like nothing. She wrapped the rest in foil and put it in the freezer, where it stayed for a long time. That night, she ran your bath warmer than usual and sat on the edge of the tub while you didn't cry. You decided, the way an 8-year-old decides things, that the reason was you. That you were the kind of kid people remembered they didn't like once they got the chance to skip you. You never said this out loud, because saying it would have made it a fact, and you were trying very hard to keep it a maybe. You didn't have a party the next year, and your mother said, "Good, smaller is better, we'll do something nice, just us." And you believed that too, because she said it the way people say things they need you to believe. Something in you closed a small door that afternoon and got used to the house being 1 room smaller. In school, you learned to be the one who didn't ask first, who waited to be picked instead of raising a hand. When other kids said, "Come over," you heard the gap before the words, the half-second where they decided to be kind. You became easy to invite and easy to forget, and you told yourself you preferred it that way. You got good at the sentence, "I'm fine on my own," and you said it so often it stopped being a sentence and became a wall. At your own apartment, years later, you'd plan things and then cancel them an hour before, relieved. You read every silence as an answer, and the answer was always the one you decided on when you were 8. You weren't unhappy, exactly. You just built a life with the guest list kept short on purpose. There was a woman once who threw you a birthday dinner and invited 6 of your friends without telling you. You walked in and they all turned, and your first feeling, before anything else, was a kind of falling. You smiled and you got through it, and later she asked why you'd gone so quiet, and you didn't have the words yet. You didn't have the words because the words were in a drawer in your mother's house, and you didn't know it. Your mother got old the way she did everything, quietly, and without telling you the worst of it. The calls got shorter. She'd say she was fine. She'd say, "Don't make a fuss." She'd say the same things she always said. When she died, it was in the early morning, in the spring, and the nurse said it was peaceful, which is what they say. You drove back to the house you grew up in, and the front window was the same window, smaller now. You started clearing it out the way you do, 1 room at a time, deciding what a life is worth keeping. Her bedroom was last, because it was hers, and some part of you was still asking permission. You opened the dresser, the top drawer, the one that smelled like her, scarves folded the way she folded everything. Under the scarves there was a bundle of envelopes held with a brown rubber band gone brittle and cracked. You almost didn't look. You thought, old letters, and you almost set them in the box for later. Then you saw the dinosaur, drawn in pencil, pressed hard so the lines wouldn't smudge. They were the invitations. All of them. Sealed, addressed in your 8-year-old hand, and never sent. The rubber band snapped when you slid it off, the way old things give up all at once. You spread them on the bed, 11 of them, every name from a class you could still half remember. There were no stamps. There had never been any stamps. They had not been lost, they had been kept. You sat down on the floor of your mother's room, and the math arrived the way cold water arrives. She had taken them, that morning, into her purse, and she had carried them, and she had brought them home. And she had put them in this drawer, under the scarves, for 30 years, where you would only find them when she could no longer explain. You will not get to ask her why, and so you do the thing you've always done, which is decide it was you. But this time it doesn't hold, because the invitations are right there, and they tell a different story. You think of the house as it was then, the wallpaper coming loose, the second job she didn't talk about. You think of how she flinched when other mothers idled in their station wagons at the curb. How she'd say next year, smaller, just us, the way you'd later say I'm fine on my own. You understand, sitting on her floor, that she could not bear for them to come in and see how you lived. That her shame was bigger than your birthday, and she made a choice in the time it takes to walk to a mailbox. She chose to let you believe no one came, rather than let anyone come and see her. And then she had to watch you at the window, knowing, and she sat down next to you anyway, and said nothing. She relit the candles for you twice. She wrapped the cake in foil. She ran the bath warm. She did all of it with the envelopes already in her purse, and that is the part you cannot put down. You want to be angry, and you are, but anger needs somewhere to go, and she has taken even that with her. You loved her. She loved you, and her love cost you something you spent 30 years paying without the receipt. Both of those are true at the same time, and neither one cancels the other, and that is the whole ache of it. The kids whose names are on these envelopes never knew there was a party. They didn't choose anything. There was no crowd that turned away from you. There was just a woman who couldn't open the door. Which is worse and also somehow better, and you sit with both until your legs go numb. You don't throw the invitations away. You can't, and you don't fully know why. You take them to the kitchen table, the same table, and you lay them out under the same overhead light. You think about mailing them now, 30 years late, as a joke, as a wound, and you don't. Instead, you sit there until it gets dark, the way you sat at the window when you were 8. And you let the boy at the window be wrong. Finally, not unlikable, just unmailed. It doesn't fix him. He waited the whole afternoon and grew up at that glass, and you can't reach back and tell him. But you can stop telling him the old thing, the thing that wasn't true, the thing you built a quiet life around. Before you leave the house for the last time, you stand at the front window and look out at the street. It's the same street. No cars are slowing. No one is coming, and for the first time that is just a fact and not a verdict. You peel the last of the old tape off the doorframe with your thumbnail, tape that has been there longer than you knew. Yellow, brittle, from a balloon you put up yourself when you were 8 and still believed the day would be good. You put the invitations in your coat pocket, over your chest, and you leave them sealed. Some letters get answered and some get kept, and a few you just carry, because carrying them is the only honest thing left. Your mother loved you enough to break you a little, and she never knew the size of it, and now she can't. So you do the only thing there is to do with a love like that. You take it with you, the whole weight, out the door and into the ordinary afternoon.